Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
Several months ago, I had on Jason Zagadlo, and very interesting. Jason actually lives about an hour and a half away. He was introduced to me by a woman in Cyprus. She was a booking person for podcasts. And we got on, we got to know each other. We've actually become good friends, just texting and emailing and whatnot. But he had a real interesting take on things. He's kind of a career strategist and helps people who are in transition or people who are looking to transition find new jobs. And very interesting. But the one thing he said to me, which is really kind of universal to all of us, is that the new currency is attention. Getting people's attention is the new currency. And I thought about that a lot as I was preparing to interview today's guest, Craig Lucy. Is it correct? Craig Lucy? Did I get that correct?
Yes, sir. It's like I Love Lucy, but it's Lucie.
Yeah, I should have clarified that. We were talking for a half hour beforehand. That was the one thing I should have clarified, and I didn't. But Craig spent an entire career in the news industry and then walked away from it. And when I say an entire career, I mean he's if he had a van with a bumper sticker on it for every place he's been and every place he's worked, it would look like a hippie. But
I do love a good jam band.
Yeah, there you go. But he started his own media business, and in the news you have 30-second sound bites, right? Just 30-second stories. And what he's done is developed a proven storytelling strategy, and he's helped businesses basically create their own news. And that's a huge part of, again, getting back to what Jason said, creating attention. Anyhow, Craig, welcome to the program.
Frank, thanks so much for having me. I really enjoyed talking with you before you even hit record. And I love Jason's message too about just, the new currency being attention, because that's what we tell clients and people all day long. Like, you have to inject yourself in the conversation.
Yeah. Well, it applies to anybody. I mean, you have a million law firms out there. You name it. You have Tesla, you have SpaceX. Those are some unique businesses. But everyone else, we all have competition. I mean, one of the things you said before we hit record is the number of marketing firms, marketing agencies. There's a lot of competition out there.
Oh yeah, a dime a dozen out there.
Yeah.
I'd like to say we had a good 5.5 year head start, because I think a lot of them were a bit slow to adopt what we say video is the new language. I mean, the core of what we do is video storytelling for nonprofits, businesses, individuals, you name it. And so we worked with marketing agencies where they don't specialize in video, and roll ourselves up with them. And we love that because they might do some work that we don't really want to mess with. But yeah, there are tons of marketing agencies out there, but we do believe the best way to market yourself is through video.
I had another guy on my podcast, and he said, you need to, in business, you're either first, best, or different.
Yep.
And you know that. Very, very few of us are first. Best, I bristle at that whole term.
Yeah.
But different. We can all be different, right? We can all have that. When you're working with people and trying to get their attention message out there, how do you help them mind for different? Because that's not always easy.
Yeah, it's not easy, and it's very collaborative, because we always tell a client, whether it be a business, either wealth management, an attorney, or a nonprofit. And, nonprofits, we found a lot of success in creating these gala videos, because you got to pull at people's heartstrings. But when it comes to like what makes them different, we always say you all are eat, sleeping, and breathing what you do, and we want to have that conversation. And we're the outsiders looking in, and because a lot of us are former journalists, we have been trained at identifying stories. We say two words: humanize and resonate. We are going to humanize your business, your nonprofit, you as an individual, as weird as that sounds, to humanize yourself by creating compelling content that will resonate with an audience. Because if you think about in news, we had to go and find stories to make the mom or dad, whoever's in the kitchen, they've got kids running around, stop in their tracks. And if they're not watching the news, maybe they're listening. So we're always writing just in case someone's distracted. And so that's a key part of it as well. But finding out what is the crux of the story and really finding out how they're different. We always ask three questions, which I told you, Frank, earlier, is what are you trying to say? Who are you trying to say it to? And what do you want them to do? And that what do you want them to do is like the call to action. In business and in networking, you can't be afraid to ask for anything. So if you're going to be doing a video, what is it that you are trying to get across? And I was telling you earlier, everybody has a story. It's our job to tell it. So we have kind of, one of my colleagues is always saying, like, we got to find our lane, got to find our lane. I'm like, yes, it would be great if we just specialized in law firms or just specialized in wealth management, but we're a small business. So I always say we're not in the business of turning away business. But I think that, politicians just over the past few years have really understood this create your news model. In fact, our governor here in Georgia, we've done some work, and no matter your politics, we always say this too. He was very steadfast in his message. I told you what I was going to do, and I did it. You might not have liked it, but I did it. And, Governor Kemp has great approval ratings here in Georgia. But at one of his rallies, he said, ABC News this week invited me to come on the show this weekend. And this was in a park. There's a lot of people. He's like, and I thought to myself, why would I go on that show just to be ambushed? No, I'm not going to do that. I have my own news crew right here. I'm going to push this out through my channels. And when I collaborate with people and people are sharing it, I can reach a very large audience. And it's the same way. It's the same way that works for businesses and nonprofits. And there's, when it comes to creating content and storytelling, it is the strategy behind it. We say leveraging the content, but also looking for opportunities. I mean, think about it in your business and the massive network that you guys have with AmSpirit, finding people who have a lot of followers and collaborating with them, injecting them in the story. They're going to share it. Someone else is going to share it. And suddenly maybe you only have 500 followers. Maybe you have 50. I don't know. But this person could have 50,000, and now you've got a lot more eyeballs on your story.
Yeah. As you were talking, it kind of got me thinking about PR firms. And I mean, they're still out there. I just, used to be the job of the PR firm to get themselves in front of you as the news anchor, right? That was their job.
I've been the recipient of thousands of PR pitches.
Right.
And I'll tell you that what we specialize in, and I don't want this podcast years to be me plugging our business, but we specialize in taking own media and turning it into earned media. And earned media is really what PR companies are doing. They're like, all right, Frank, you want to be in the Wall Street Journal? We're going to pitch you. Me being on the receiving end of that, I didn't want our success being tied to a journalist, because I can't tell you how many times I've talked to very prominent CEOs in Atlanta, lined up an interview with them, and then something happens in the news and I got to cancel on them. And I might not get back to that story. Just that's the pace of news. So, we work with PR companies. Because we've been in the news, we have a lot of relationships and we can get people placements and whatnot, but that's not the core of what we do. And I think that the PR, it's an overused word in a lot of different industries, but disruption. If you think about what AI can do, these PR companies used to charge $2,500 to do a news release. Hell, you can go in and put in Chat GPT or Gemini and say, this is what I want, and it'll rip out a press release in seconds for you. So I think PR has will continue to evolve. And we are seeing a lot of these big time PR agencies now going the video route.
Yeah. What I appreciate about what you do, you're almost providing a voice to all those PR press releases that ended up in the shredder or wherever they went. Because only a small percentage are going to get on the news. And somebody could say, well, geez, we're different than this way. And if only the world knew, if only I could just tap into the world with respect to my little differentiator. But if it doesn't hit the news, it's gone. Whereas what you guys are doing now is really providing an avenue for those people to say, okay, yeah, or you're saying to them, okay, yeah, we'll create a story around this. The media is
Yeah.
already there. You have YouTube, you have Facebook, you have whatever.
I mean, I would get I told you before you hit record, but I was getting press releases all the time from businesses and nonprofits. And I thought, wow, this is a great story, but there's no way that we're going to cover it because we are so hard news based. I mean, there's wonderful nonprofits here in Atlanta that are building homes and putting underprivileged families in these homes. And sometimes I'd get away with it when I would pitch the producers, like, let's do this. And it would be what we call a kicker story that would come at the end of the newscast. And I love to do the kicker stories. And believe it or not, that was when we had the best ratings pop. And that's you watch David Muir and the rest of them, they're always teasing ahead to like this humanized story. These are wonderful stories. And I just said, we can take this newsroom model, identify stories for companies and nonprofits, and help them share their message and then leverage it through social media and send out X posts and Facebook posts, Instagram, LinkedIn, and reach a larger audience. And then a lot of the media today, you and I were talking too, the media is quickly evolving. I still think that local news is very important because we got to hold these mayors and school board accountable, and that is the sole job of a journalist, is going out and really investigating. But for companies, they don't have a full-time journalist. And there was an article actually I shared on my LinkedIn page from Forbes about how these big brands, like take Robinhood, are hiring journalists and they're creating newsrooms within their organization. I shared it and I'm like, yes, this is what we've been doing for about 6 years.
Yeah.
Like, you have to start pushing out your own stuff. It's okay to pat yourself on the back. If you're not doing it, who is? And if you're doing a big event and you raise $50,000, the news isn't going to cover that. You've got to get out there and share that story.
Yeah. Now, as I referenced early on, you worked for all these different stations, and then made this decision to go out on your own, which is, for a lot of people listening, it's a scary, scary thing. How did you get that networked? How did you really kind of transformed yourself from being the Walter Cronkite, if you will, right? Which is very different from being a business person.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, my parents, when I told my parents, they thought I was crazy. My wife, I had a 3-year-old little girl and a 6-month-old boy at the time, and my wife had a great job, so it wasn't like we were going to be out on the streets, and that was a nice little fallback to have. But both my grandparents were entrepreneurs, and my brother also walked away from a job and started. He's in the senior assisted living business, and he started a business with one of my dear friends, actually. And I was at the Kentucky Derby. We go every year. My in-laws are big horse folks, and there was a guy, his name's Michael Merriman, and he's out of Kansas City. He went to SMU. I went to SMU, and I was just telling him, I noticed the evolution of media. The consumption of it was very different. The iPhone had changed the world when it comes to consuming information and content. And he literally, between races, because there's a lot of races on Kentucky Derby Day, he was like, you know what, at your age, if you don't do this now, you're going to regret it for the rest of your life. And what's the worst that's going to happen to you? Okay, you fail. Sure, that's going to suck. But there are many, it's not like, there's no other jobs out there for you to go find. And, you can relate to this as well. There are long days, long nights, lots of stress. And it's the constant grind. It's never ending.
Yeah.
but you just got to do it. If it's in your heart, you got to do it. But I did test the waters a little bit. Now I couldn't do things ethically being a journalist, but I would tell people, hey, I'm thinking about leaving in about 8 months, and I can do this for your company. My last day is going to be in August. If you're interested, would love to take you to lunch, coffee, or whatever. So I'd lined up already about 2 to 3 clients where I had some money coming in. I think my last day was August 15th of 2019. So August 16th, I had a couple clients. So it wasn't like I truly just jumped off the cliff, and I knew that there was a need for our services. I mean, I always say every business and nonprofit in the world needs what we do. I can go online and look at a website, and if they don't have video, I mean, they're missing out. YouTube owns Google. Especially now with AI, you can find out what people are searching for and search in certain industries and put all those keywords on the back end of a YouTube video. And immediately that happened with my brother with his assisted living company. He actually helped out in a big way, because he's like, all right, I'll let you try out one of my properties. I'm like, all right, well, we're going big on video. And they were like just not discoverable on Google, when they had many pages. So we brought them up organically to a top search just because we were pushing out videos, and not many businesses at the time. Now a decent amount of them are doing it, but in assisted living, independent living, memory care, are profiling the staff members, the nurses, the food. Their days revolve around food. You got to showcase that, and just pushing all that out. And for the adult child looking for a place for mom and dad, you and I were mentioning this too, like over video, there's a connection. You and I are on video right now. You can see my body language. I can see your body language. And so they're like, oh, okay, actually that caregiver I think would be great for my mom.
Yeah. Yeah, no, there's definitely something to it. I always joke that with Zoom, the only thing you don't know is how tall somebody is.
Yeah.
That's the only thing you run into somebody in person. Oh my God, you're really tall, or you're really short. I didn't realize. But other than that, it's
And you see a lot of, I'm in this entrepreneur group, and we were just talking about some of them were having issues with the remote work aspect. And so the ones who are truly remote, as in not in Atlanta and other cities, he says they have to have their cameras on, because if their cameras aren't on, then they might be scrolling on Facebook or whatever. I need to see that they're engaged.
Yeah. Well, I think there's probably a formula out there. Somebody's probably studying it. The more people you have on, like you and I, it's 1-to-1, right? I mean, we're dialed in. If it's 3 people, then it's like, okay, you're still pretty dialed in. But at some point you start to lose people, and you can kind of see, okay, yeah, this is really not effective.
This meeting's going too long.
Yeah, somebody's kind of looking off, and they're not paying attention. They're doing whatever.
Right.
They're doing whatever. Well, let's shift gears. I want to talk about your business and what you have going, and where's it all headed? We're good clients.
Well,
how people can get a hold of you.
Yeah, so they can get a hold of us. Our website's lucycontent.com, on X and Facebook and all the platforms. LinkedIn, I'm just at Craig Lucy. And businesses, I think we like any business, you're starting from zero. So we were able to have some great growth, and 6 months in is when COVID hit. And I told you earlier, I was like, okay, great. I got out of news. We have a global pandemic hitting. I've got some of the few clients that I have now telling me to get my invoices in because they're worried that they might not get paid. But we had, it's always, business is always pivoting and evolving. So we took what we knew and started creating Zoom videos. We started sending crews to CEOs' offices so that they could communicate with staff. And naturally, because we understand the news, we knew for healthcare clients that we always say when blood's in the water, sharks are coming, and we are sharks. We know exactly what they're going to ask, how they're going to deliver it, what they're after. So we can coach them on how to deal with the bombardment when it comes to a serious, that obviously was a massive crisis, especially this particular client was in nursing homes. But we evolved, and our clients have been amazing because they've forced us to evolve. while we started doing video content and storytelling, like, hey, our website, I know you guys have been posting videos there. Can you do an audit on it? And we look at it. And so then we started doing websites. And then, I mentioned assisted living. I didn't know diddly about mailers. And so we do mailers, and that line of business, you're physically forced to hold a mailer. And then if you have a QR code or a number, you use call tracking software. And if they call, that $4,000 mailer might lead to 10 move-ins. And so 10 move-ins at, let's just call it 10 grand a month. That's a great ROI on marketing. So mailers work in certain businesses. And then another one said, can you guys design some billboards? So we got in the billboard business. We've always done social media. And then we decided we went big, and we're on the Upper West Side of Atlanta, an area that's really exploded over the past few years. And we built a studio. I'm doing this in a podcast studio that we built in here as well. And that's been fun, just because we'll rent it out. We'll do podcast subscriptions, studio subscriptions, if people just want to elevate their content, whether they're an influencer business or whatever. It allows us to bring a client or new client into a controlled environment and shoot their videos. And what we call it is a content grab. So in our business, because we're trained journalists, bringing out the cameras and equipment and crew, that can get expensive, but over half a day or a full day, we're going to shoot. And if we're interviewing 5 people, we're probably getting 20 stories, and that can last over 3 months. So that's pretty cost effective. And those content grabs are really beneficial for the client who's, we're all budget mindful, for them to, let's shoot this. And then as I, get some more dollars in our budget, well, I'll just hit you up and you can do some more editing, and we string that out. So while it's a challenge, our business it's been fun. It's like news. Every day is different. We might have a crisis on our hands. We might need to design a billboard. We might need to deal with some crazy troll on some company's social media that we have to kind of fix. So it's fun. But as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of competition out there. A lot of people are starting to do videos. So we've been leaning into like media and executive training. We just had a complimentary seminar. I had invited people to the studio, and you're all about networking. So, here's coffee, breakfast, and we're going to show you how to answer certain questions on camera. We'll catch them off guard a little bit as well, because these things happen.
Yeah.
And even if they freeze up during, if they're giving a big speech, it was interesting because it was very collaborative, and people were like, one woman's who runs a nonprofit here, she goes, well, I was just speaking and there was about 800 people there, and it was one of these galas at night, and there were a lot of drunk people in the back, and I could not get their attention, and I just didn't know what to do. And so what do you do in that situation where people are just being rude? And I said, well, funny enough, like I MC events. I said, I had that situation as well. And I was emceeing an event, and literally there's nothing wrong with, let's go back to humanize. There is nothing wrong with you being you and just gauging your inner feeling and saying, excuse me, I would really like you guys in the back of the room to quiet down. We help kids with cancer, and while you guys are having fun back there, someone just lost their child to cancer. Now, it doesn't have to be that up front, but if you want to quiet a room down, bam, they'll quiet down quick. So she said that, the CEO who had invited her to speak was just appalled by it and apologized. And she didn't really know how to handle the situation. But I tell anybody, just be yourself. And if you're talking to a room full of kids, treat them as a room full of kids. Hey guys, quit messing around in the back of the classroom. We're here to learn.
Yeah. Well, what I love about that story there is the whole notion of just bringing people in and giving it away. Right. I mean, you're basically, hey, I'm going to teach you. You're not paying for this.
Yeah.
But somebody's going to come back and say, oh, this guy's sharp. I don't really need him for that, but I've got this other thing. I call it Trojan horse marketing, right? It's just like,
I love it.
I'm going to give it away. Oh, while you're here, I'm going to subtly pitch you. So I love it.
I'm never opposed to like giving a story away, because in anything really, it relates. Because in our case, let's say we we have an insurance company that's inquired and they're on the fence. How about this? I'm just going to give you this story. I'm going to send my crew. We'll come for a couple hours, knock it out. Well, now I have all this content that when they are ready, we can continually cut videos for them. But I also have a video I can create a case study. And so if there's another insurance company out there, I can show them and be like, hey, you see this brand story for the website that, on your about page, it explains why you created this insurance company and why you love what you do. This is what you need. So all's not lost. You got to give to receive.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Craig, I really appreciate your time. I know I've taken a ton of it considering all the pre-chatter, but I hadn't had a chance to meet you, and I thought that was certainly worthwhile for me. So thanks for your time today.
Thank you so much, Frank. It was a pleasure. You and I could go on and on. I feel like I was talking too much about what I did and didn't get into your topics, but I love how you just take a topic and start talking about it, whether you have a guest or not.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.